This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good afternoon, Rabbi. We're continuing in our Shiur on Biur Tefilla. The Biur Tefilla series is sponsored by our good friend Betzal Rose of Los Angeles, Leo Nishmas, his brother, Tzvi ben Levi Yitzchak, and Zasham Shehav and Aliyah, Rav Millers Thoughts for his whole mishpacha. And today's learning is dedicated by our dear friend Rav Josh Rosenthal on the occasion of his father's yahrzeit. Aaron ben Yeshua Zelig is Zasham Shehav and Aliyah, Rav Millers Thoughts for his whole mishpacha. Okay, so we're continuing on in HODU. We mentioned the first segment of HODU was the Shiur commissioned by David HaMelech to Asa to compose for the Tamid Shal Shachar, and that goes from HODU until Al Tigu b'Mashichai Uvin V'yai Al Tareo. The second song starts from Shiur Lo Shir Chadash, and it goes until Baruch V'imro Hishenu L'Keshin Kavsin Nasim L'Gim L'Hashim Kashem Yosech Baruch Shem Eilam Amen V'Amen. Vayoyimru Kol. It goes till Vayoyimru Kol Ha'am Amen Hallelujah. And then begins what Rav Schwab has deemed the braiding of Tefilla. Nigadelcha, if you remember, unishabechacha, unifa'ercha, v'namlichacha, v'nazker shemecha. So these are the 5 parts of Pesukei de Zimra. The first part being Nigadelcha, and Rav Schwab learns Nigadelcha is a lashon of Gidol, braiding. And what this does is it takes psukim from different areas of Tanakh and it braids them together like a bouquet of flowers. So the first braiding was Ra'imimu Hashem Elokeinu v'shachol lahadam raglav kadoshu. Ra'imimu Hashem Elokeinu v'shachol kadoshu ki kadosh Hashem Elokeinu. Now we move on to the second braid, and the second braid takes psukim that are in Tehillim. So we're not. One is Tehillim Ayin Ches, one will be Tehillim Mem, and one is from elsewhere in Tehillim, and they are braided together. So what is this braiding? Because the last braid consisted of 2 psukim, 2 roimimus. The second braid is now going to consist of 3 psukim. As you know, for all you guys who bake challah out there, which I don't recommend, my recommendation is stay out of the kitchen. But if you make that mistake and you go into the kitchen, you better know what you're doing. So either sometimes you make challah, the braid should be small. Sometimes you make challah, the braid should be big. This second braid is a bigger braid. And this is called the braid of Rachamim. We take 3 psukim, and the theme of these 3 psukim is Rachamim. We begin, V'hu rachum yichaper avoin v'lo yashchis. Now we don't say V'hu merachem, he has mercy. We say V'hu rachum. Rachum, says Rav Schwab, is a lashon of pu'al, that he becomes rachum through others. That means God. We're not saying God has mercy. Rachum means others make him one who has mercy. Rachum. We make God have mercy. How? By asking Him to have mercy. We don't say, V'hu merachem. No. God doesn't see us and say, oh, I feel bad for those Nebuchadnezzar Jews. Let me help them out. No, He doesn't do that. God looks down and He says, look, if they don't want me to have mercy on them, then I don't know. You know, they're going to shul, but I don't know what they're doing over there. They're fooling around, they might be speaking, they might have their phones out, so nothing I can do, can't help them. God is not just merachem, He's rachum. We have to make Him have mercy on us. Who says that? King David. King David, he was an Orthodox rabbi. He knows what he's saying. He doesn't say God is merachem. He says God is rachum. We make Him have rachmanus. V'hainu sherachmanusai al yedei bakashasech shem tispalo lo yizbarach sheyiten lecha rachamim yishma tfilascha. We make God have rachmanus on us. V'chein lo yiksiv choynein. We don't say God has graciousness upon us. He's chanun. We engender it. Now this is an important thing, and hopefully we'll discuss it more next week. And that is, V'hu Racham Yechaper Avon. You better know what this pasuk means, because there's no pasuk that we say more often. We say this pasuk at least 4 times a day. How's that? We say it in HODU, we say it in Yehi Chavoid, we say it in Uval Etzion, and we say it on Marav. And on Shabbos, we say it 5 times. You say, what? Yeah, if you count Matzah Shabbos, we say it 5 times. We say it in HODU, Yehi Chavoid, Uval Etzion by Mincha. We say it Matzah Shabbos V'hu Racham, and then again in Uval Etzion by Marav. V'chol pam yesh b'amirasa kavanah miuchadas, and every one of these 5 times you say it means something else. So you say, that works out well, because I don't know what any of them mean. That's good for you. That's true. But each time you say V'hu Racham, it means a different thing. That's the advantage of ignorance is bliss. I don't know what it means, so I don't have to worry about it contradicting one meaning to the other. We're going to talk about its meaning by Shachris. Now, next week we're going to discuss, there is an opinion, you don't say this pasuk on Shabbos. The Magen Avram brings, you don't say it on Shabbos. Say, but it's in the Siddur. Like we've said many times. You need to know this halachic point. There is a shaila whether you're allowed to say the pasuk V'uracham on Shabbos. And there's a difference between the Huracham of HODU and the Huracham of Yichavoid. Now, says Rav Schwab, Mishuras hadin, k'sha'adam moirid b'koyne v'osu davara, yitzchak l'kabel onish teika from miyad. According to the letter of the law, you do something wrong, you need to get punished immediately. Loi begeder nekama, not vengeance. You need to correct what you did. The problem is, if God would punish immediately, then we would never be able to recover. So if God would punish immediately, then chas v'shalom, it would be lightning, and that would be the end of it. So in exchange for one immediate grand finality of punishment, Hashem is marich apoy. Hashem withholds, He lengthens His anger, and He punishes little by little. So one day you're a little achy, and one day you're a little stuffed nose, and the next day your throat is a little itchy. And this way, the Rebbe Shalom, Rachamim, instead of one whopper, he spreads it out, and the conglomerate effect of the aches and pains is in exchange. Somebody once asked me, why do we say Rifa'inu Hashem v'nei Rafei, God heal us? Why don't we say Hashem, I don't know, keep us healthy? The answer is there even a day of one's life that a person doesn't need some kind of refuah? No? Every day you could legitimately say Rifa'inu Hashem v'nei Rafei. V'hakol mitzav l'cheshbon liyas k'may oynish gadav v'nera. Now, v'hu rachum, God is merciful, yichaper avayin. What does kapara mean? To cover over. Af al avayin. Avayin is avinu b'mezeh, that which we sinned intentionally. Uvemal, God covers over even our intentional sin. V'lo yashchis, and He doesn't destroy. In the madrega of giving us punishment all at once. The hirba lahashav apoy. God withdraws His anger, even if we're chayiv anoinshim. And He doesn't arouse all of His anger, but He punishes little by little, like a bal choiv, like a creditor, that He doesn't collect all at once. He says, okay, pay me $10 today, $50 tomorrow, until you pay off the debt. So here I want to share with you some thoughts of Rev Miller on these 3 psukim, the braiding of mercy. And He is merciful. V'hu rachum, He is merciful. What does that mean, He is merciful? It means only He is merciful. And only He is fully merciful. Everyone else, they're merciful, but it's contingent, but it's not intrinsic. And even the mercy of other people in our life, it's not intrinsic because it comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even the mercy of a father and a mother on their children is not intrinsic. It's something God put in them. So V'hu Rachum means only God is merciful and only He is intrinsically merciful. Now we don't say V'hu Yerachem, He will have mercy, or He does have mercy, but He is merciful. Which means, it doesn't mean a tense, it means that's His profession, that's His reality, it's His profession and vocation. He is intrinsically merciful at all times. Okay. Now we say V'hirba lahashav apai. He greatly turns back His wrath. What do you mean? What wrath? Why is God so upset? And the answer is because the anger and the wrath which is created by sin is extraordinarily great. And that's something that we very successfully ignore and don't think about. We don't think about the fact that when a person commits an Aveira, it arouses a very extraordinary wrath. And that could be for any numerous possibilities of Averas that one may commit. And we have to realize that even though it creates extraordinary wrath, very much of God's anger is turned back and withdrawn just because of His kindness. So here a person could do something improper, may say something harsh, do something improper in a Beis HaKnesses, in a shul, in his house, and on the street, and that arouses a very great anger, but you should know, much of it God withdraws just because of His kindness. However, unless a person does a perfect tshuva, there's still going to be kas and wrath against the person. V'hirba, He greatly turns back His wrath, but not completely. Not all of the wrath is turned back. Now, He doesn't stir up all of His anger. Says Rev Miller, so enormous is the effect of a sin that it could stir up a terrible storm of anger against the world. But in His great mercy, He doesn't permit it to be stirred up. Meaning, technically, once one Aveira is committed, there should be a tsunami. But it doesn't happen very often. And that's because God, in His kindness, He doesn't allow the anger to be stirred up. And this is the main offering I want to share with you on this pasuk. It's a pasuk that I believe is the most commonly recited pasuk the entire day. We say that God does four things. V'hu rachum yichaper avain. V'lo yashches. V'hir balahashav apai. V'lo ya'ir kol chamasai. Says Harav Avigdor Millers Thoughts. These 4 degrees of mercy are enumerated in diminishing order. Number 1, we say, V'hurachum yichaper avain. God, you're merciful, you should cover over the whole sin. That's the greatest demonstration of mercy, that God cover over the whole sin. Then we daven that even if He doesn't consent to wipe out the sin because of its gravity, or because He has to set an example, we say, if you're not Yechaper Avain, then at least V'lo Yashchis, don't destroy. Meaning, if you don't cover it over, at least God doesn't destroy. Such as, Chas v'Shalom, a sentence of death. But we ask that it should be Rachamim, like we said, in small measures, and they should add up. And if you can't do that, and a lot of your wrath has been aroused, we ask you, at least turn back a lot of it. Even if it's too late to revoke the decree, but as a last resort, we ask you to withdraw much of it. And even if you can't do that, even if you can't withdraw it, at the very least, at least if you do have to carry it out, it should be without the full measure of anger. So that is the first pasuk. The first pasuk comes from Tehillim, and it is based on Rachamim, V'hu Rachum Yichaper Avain. So how do we understand this braid? Says the Rev Miller. Ata Hashem loisichla rachamecha mimeni. You, God, do not withhold your mercies from me. Now that's pretty direct, and that should make an impression on a person. Could you go over to a king or an important person or even your governor and say, you, pa, you don't talk that way. But with God, look how we're speaking to Him. You, Hashem, don't withhold your mercy from us. So we don't just say, sichla, loy sichla, don't you withhold. We say, ata, you. And we don't say, loy sichla, ata, we say, ata. So what do we see from here? We're saying you and you alone are the source from which Israel expects mercy at all times. The fact that we start off, Ata Hashem loisichla rachamecha mimeni, that means what we're enunciating is don't think that we're protected because we have a savvy Prime Minister, Netanyahu, who could tippy-toe around presidents of the United States and dictators. No. Don't expect mercy, not from the President of the United States, not from the Prime Minister of the State of Israel, and not from any other world leader or power in this world. Ata Hashem, only you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, are the source of Rachamim. We don't expect mercy from anybody else. And what's amazing is, even in the time when Hashem is angry, we could still say, don't forget your mercy. As it says in Chavakuk, Beroig ez rachim tiskar, even in God's anger, remember your mercy. This is unlike any human being who, at the time that they're angry, they're the opposite of merciful. And we say Yudke Vavke, Ata Hashem loisich rachamim mimeni, that a special bond he had with his people, and to whose fathers he promised an everlasting covenant, and his unchanging thoughts. We're saying that even at a time of Hashem's anger, we could still expect His mercy on us. And we say, Ata Hashem, le'sichla rachamech mimeni, chazdecha va'amitcha tamid yitzruni. Your kindliness and your truth always guard me. Now I understand what it means that God's kindness always guards us. What does it mean His truth guards us? How does the truth of Hashem guard us? What does that mean? The truth of Hashem guards us. Now, the word tamid means always, without pause. Because if His kindness or His truth would interrupt for a moment, we couldn't exist. Our existence is solely due to Hashem's kindness and truth. And any time a mishap occurs, somebody's not feeling well, someone is challenged, he has a difficulty, it's to remind us of the hundreds and thousands of millions of other occasions that Hashem's kindness stood guard over him incessantly. Somebody wakes up one day, they're not feeling well. For a person not to be feeling well, there could be one of a billion possible explanations or reasons. It's to remind you that for the majority of your life, God was watching diligently and vigilantly over all of those billions of processes to make sure they would work perfectly. And when something is not working properly, it's to remind you, to thank Hashem for being vigilant for the vast majority of all other things for during the course of the rest of your life. And it's just to trigger your mind to make you realize how every moment of life we are utterly dependent on God's incessant kindness. Now, what does truth mean? This is very important. And the reason why I bring Rev Miller over here, I didn't see any of the other Mefarshim explaining. What does it mean God's truth protects us? Truth means Hashem's faithfulness and steadfastness in maintaining His kindness. That means God is so committed to His kindness. When we say God's truth protects us, it's His commitment and His unwavering commitments, His steadfastness to His kindness. Now, MS refers, says Rev Miller, to He made a deal with us. He's not going to destroy the world in a flood. That truth stands up for us to protect us. He made a covenant with Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov that he would perpetuate the existence of Klal Yisrael. God maintains faithful to that promise. God made a promise he's going to revive the dead. He is steadfast to that promise. So all of the promises God made to maintain the existence of the universe, to redeem us, God is faithful and truthful to those promises. So this is the second pasuk of the braiding of Rachamim. Ata Hashem, lo yisichlo rachamecha mimeni, chazdecha ve'amitcha, your kindness and your truth, tamid yitzruni, always guard me. And then we say, Zechoyer Racham, this is the third pasuk of mercy, Zechoyer Rachamecha Hashem v'chasadecha, remember your mercy, Hashem, and your kindness, ki me olam hema. We say to God like this, God, when we say remember your kindness, we're not telling you to do anything new. Your kindness is as old as the hills. As soon as you created the world, you created B'midas Rachamim, like it says, Olam Chesed Yibana, that the whole Bria was not for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but God's will to be mative to us, like the Mesilas Yesharim says. Says Rabbi Victor Moshe Tzal Kevracha, Ki me'olam hema, for from ever are they. These mercies and kindnesses are those that you bestowed upon us from the days of our fathers, in addition to the mercies and kindnesses which you demonstrate at the creation universe and thenceforth. We are thereby encouraged and additionally obligated in our trust in you, meaning like this. You know why a Jew must have trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Because of our experience with Hashem. We have an obligation to trust in Hashem's kindness because of our long-standing relationship and experience with Him. From the beginning of time, God has been what Shlomo Melech says in Mishlei, Re'acha v're'a avicha al tazoiv. Your friend and the friend of your father do not forsake. So God has been our best friend from time immemorial, because the happy experiences obligate one to continue his confidence in the friend who has proved faithful throughout the generations. He fed us, He created us, He guarded us, and we trust in Him continually. So we say, Ata Hashem, Zechor Rachamecha Hashem Achzak Kimei Olam Hema. We are not drumming up something that is new, is novel. You need to be ma'ayrer. No, this is as old as the hills. We are familiar with this mode of your conduct from the beginning of time. This completes the second braid of Negadelcha. The first Gidol were the two Roimamus. But the braid of Rachamim is a three-part braid, starting with Hu Racham Yichaper Avoin, Ata Hashem Le'Sicha Rachamech Mimeni, Zechor Rachamecha Hashem Achzak Kimei Olam Hema. Rabbi said, if we could even focus on one braid of our davening, so the same way, Friday night when you're hungry, a hot challah that came out of the oven, there's nothing like it. It's so delicious, it's sweet, it's satisfying, it warms your heart. So too, if somebody is able to focus properly on the words of davening, it will be like a warm, braided challah, and it will elevate us, as Rav Schwab says, mispalel. It doesn't say mifalel. We don't offer prayer, but it's something that engenders elevation. Mispalel, it's reflexive. It elevates us. Okay, Rabbi, say thanks everyone for joining. Wish everybody a wonderful Shabbos. Bracha v'atzlacha.
Rabbi, I have to disagree with you on one thing.
I know what it is.
What?
I know you're ready. The kitchen, right?
That's right.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.